What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPapa, and I blame all of you for this video, alright? You have got me so far down this singles versus booster box data dive that I can't come up for air, and I freaking love it. So, last week we did a video where we looked at the Sword and Shield chase cards versus booster box price, and we were trying to come up with, hey, what's the better buy for long-term price appreciation? Should we just go ahead and buy that chase card, or should we go ahead and buy the booster box? What's going to do better? And we built in some factors. We said, okay, we know chase cards always start off high and then they drop off, so we said we buy the chase card at month number 4, and then we use some actuals from booster box prices. So it was a really cool video, and I got all kinds of phenomenal feedback from you guys saying, hey, we want more. So I am doing the Sun and Moon version. I'm going to be looking at the last 6 sets of Sun and Moon, and that's going to be coming out on Sunday. And I'm telling you right now, if you like the Sword and Shield video, you're going to freaking love the Sun and Moon video because it is super enlightening. It is an amazing piece of information, and I can't wait to get that in front of you. But with all that being said, I started thinking, like, is there any other indicators that could possibly tell us if a booster box is going to go up or down in price? And then I thought, well, let's not just look at these chase cards as a ratio. Let's look at everything else. Let's look at a lot more. And then I thought, hey, PikaPikaPapa, you idiot, when you first started this channel many moons ago, you had data similar to this, and this is what it looked like. I used to call this my Technicolor dream coat of Pokemon collecting awesomeness way back in the day. This is from December of 2022. These are all 12 sets with booster boxes from the Sun and Moon era. These are the single prices at December 2022. Now, you'll see down below, and I don't have to pause the video, you don't got to go into any detail here, but I do all kinds of math off of that. I look at averages, the middle 16 average, the top 10 average, the booster box price. I have all kinds of ratios that come off of that. But this is the type of math that I was doing way back then. I continue to do to this day. And what I love about this is I have this, I just had this. All I had to do was go pull it up from my Excel sheet from December of 2022, and we have these actuals from back then, and we can compare them to how the sets are performing today, so we can have some relevant information and say, hey, listen, this was 7 freaking months ago. Were there any indicators back then, 7 months ago, that would lead to the current price points now? This is what we're going to look at, and before I get into this, here's what I'm going to say. If this kind of stuff excites you, we do fun stuff like this all the time on the PikaPikaPapa channel. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, we have an absolutely amazing community. I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, this is a ton of work, and I do it happily, and I do it willfully, and I think it is a ton of fun. But if you like what you see, hit that thumbs up. No better way to show me some appreciation. And questions or comments, as always, drop them down below. I love responding to them. So remember, we just looked at the price points of all of those booster boxes from December of 2022. I went ahead and compared them to the end of June booster box prices, so beginning of July booster box prices, and this is how they stacked up. So team up from the end of December 2022 to the beginning of July 2023 is up 53%, ranking number 1. Then it goes down. Cosmic Eclipse is up 29%, Unified Minds is up 22%, etc., 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 all the way down, and you'll see that I ranked them from 1 to 12. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to split the single card prices up into a couple different views, and then I wanted to use it as a ratio versus the booster box price to see if there's anything that says, hey, listen, if the top 3 cards are, worth X amount of the booster box, then that's an indicator that the box is undervalued and people are going to pile in, or if the chase card is. So I looked at the top 3, which I just referenced. I looked at the top chase card. I looked at the average price of the all top 20 cards by value in that set. And I also looked at this funky metric that I made up all those years ago, not years ago, all those months ago, which is the middle 16, where I strip out the top 2 and I strip out the bottom 2. And I just compared the middle 16 cards of that top 20 versus the booster box price. Now, what we do is we take whatever that sum is and we use it as a ratio versus the booster box price. So I have 2 examples right here I'm going to walk you through, and I know this is really heavy, but I want to make sure you understand it because the data is really cool and I want to talk about that next. So using this example here, we're going to be looking at chase cards as a possible indicator of buys or sells. So in example 1 here, the booster box price is $300. The chase card price is $200. 200 divided by 300 is 0.67 or 67%. The chase card value is 67% of the booster box price. So to me, that sounds pretty good. To me, I'm thinking, well, hey, this chase card and booster box are so close in value, maybe the booster box is going to go up in price. Then I look at set 2 as an example, same parameters, right? The booster box price is $400 and the chase card price is $100. So 100 divided by 400 is 0.25 or 25%. So that chase card is only worth 25% of the booster box. Now, we would have to look at all 12 sets to understand how these stack rank to know if 25% is good or bad, if 67% is good or bad, but that is what we are going to do in this video, and I'm telling you, it's freaking awesome. Now, what we do is we stack rank it into thirds. You're going to see 3 different boxes. So 12 sets divided by 3, 4 sets at the top, 4 sets in the middle, 4 sets at the bottom, and then I rank them here because to the right of those different boxes boxes, I am going to sum up the rankings to give us some kind of score, right? And the lower the score, the better. So think of golf. Think of this as Pokemon Data Nerd Golf. And I am the ringleader of all of that. So the lower the score, the better. It's best to walk you through it, and we're going to get into it right now. Okay. So this is looking at the average top 20 card prices. You saw that I had those broke out in 2022. So I used those card prices from 2022, broke them out, and then I said, hey, listen, if I do that as a ratio, these are where all of the sets ranked out. So Ultra Prism had the highest ratio. So if we were to think that, hey, average top 20, a high ratio is going to lead to great booster box price appreciation, we would expect to see Ultra Prism gain a lot of momentum, right? Gain a lot of steam. It should be one of the highest gainers of this era. Well, it gained 13%, so that's nothing to shake a fist at. 13% over 7 months is a phenomenal rate of return. But then we saw Burning Shadows ranked number 2 at 10.2%. Cosmic Eclipse ranked number 3, right, at 9.7% ratio, and then Cosmic Eclipse is up 29%, so that's a big gainer right there. Then you have Unified Minds there, a big gainer number 2. The thing that I liked about this is that top box right there, 2 of the top 4 sets made it into the top box. So that's a pretty strong indicator right there. I don't think there's any indication we're ever going to get. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to pick the top 4, the middle 4, and the bottom 4. There's always going to be some fluctuation. So seeing that this predictor, you got 2 of the top 4 gainers over that 7-month period in it, I think is really strong. And then you see, remember, I sum up the rank to the right. Remember, lower is better, and that came in at 21. Then you look at predicted out the middle and the bottom half. I'm not overly concerned about the middle and the bottom, right? I think as investors and as collectors, we want the sets that are going to appreciate and value the most. So I think identifying the top third, this top box, that's really where we spend most of our time and focus. Now, we will talk about this, like for example, in the middle set here, you have the number 1 set Team Up, the number 5 set Lost Thunder, and then you also have the number 11 and number 12 sets. So you can't get more diverged than that. So that is absolute insanity there in the middle. And then at the bottom, you know, you got some pretty strong sets down there in the bottom, right? Celestial Storm was number 4, Guardian Rising was number 6, Crimson Invasion was number 7. So I walked away from looking at the average of the top 20 versus booster box price as an indicator, and I wasn't quite sold. I thought, you know, this is, there maybe, like, congratulations, you got two of the top 3 in the top box, which is pretty good, but I want to dig a little deeper. Then we got into the chase card versus booster box. Now, we've been talking a lot about chase card versus booster boxes, and as I said, that conversation is going to continue on Sunday. But when I use this, it got Team Up into the top, right? Which was interesting. When I saw Team Up end up in the top box, looking at it this way, I was very excited about that. So you'll see that Burning Shadows, Ultra Prism, Team Up, and Lost Thunder were all up there. Now, for all the good that this chase card got Team Up into the top, it really dropped the ball beyond that, right? You see 2 number 7 sets. That's because they're tied. So there's 2 at number 7 and 1 ranked at number 8. And what it did was it gave us a great idea of the middle, right? Look at the middle. You got the 2, 3, 4 set, which ended up in kind of that middle box from a ratio perspective. So for me, I think using the chase card alone as a predictor of future booster box performance, at least this far, we're going to need more data. We're going to need to do this more times. But at least as of right now, it is telling me, hey, we need more. The set needs more than just a big chase card. It needs a bigger, more complete list up there in the top 20, because the chase card versus booster box didn't give us that great low score that we're looking at up there. We got the number 1 set, but then we got 7, 7, and 9. So I was like, okay, you know, I thought there was going to be a little bit more excitement here on the chase card versus booster box, but the math doesn't support it to this point. Then I got into this crazy figure that I made up, which was middle 16. And I guess I should explain why I came up with that. You know, again, as I just said a minute ago, I always feel like there has to be more to a set than just a big chase card. Like, I think it's exciting to have a big chase card, and that can certainly push a set to a certain level. But I think in order for booster boxes to get to the Team Up level, Cosmic Eclipse level, like some of these crazy levels, there needs to be more than just one big chase card or some crazy amount of exclusivity, which is part of the reason we see Team Up doing so good. So I did this, and I got a lot of feedback when I did it back in December, and I kind of set it to the side and hadn't looked at it, but I thought if I'm going to do this data dive, I might as well bring it up anyway. So here's what I did, and look what it did, at least this far. Look at that top box. You have the number 2, number 3, and number 5 ranked sets in the top box, which is really cool. Again, you're never going to go 4 for 4, so getting 3 of the top 5 ranked almost properly, like, that's a really cool indicator right there for me. Now, where it did miss was, you look at Team Up, it ranked Team Up way down at the bottom, but that's because Team Up, the booster box price is so incredibly high, right? We know it's super short printed, we know it's really scarce, so the booster box price is really high, and then once you get outside of those top tier cards, the price starts to constrict a lot. So Team Up, it missed. It put Team Up way down at the bottom. But if I'm using this as an indicator, I don't always want to get the, well, I mean, I always want to get the number 1 set, but I understand that that always isn't going to happen. happened, but still seeing 2, 3, and 5 up there, I felt really good about that. So this was a really interesting view, and this is a very, very low golf score, if you will. Remember, we said we add up the ranks. This one at 17, spoiler alert, is the rarest and the lowest that we're going to see out of all of the sets that were comparison. So middle 16, maybe, we'll see. Again, we need to do more data. We need to do more deep dives, but it was really cool to see that these sets popped off there. Then the average of the top 3. Now this is the one where I sat back and I was like, okay, if there's a leading indicator, I felt very convincingly, I was like, the average of the top 3 has to be it, because it's not just about the chase card, but the number 2 card and the number 3 card. If we have really strong performers in that 1, 2, 3 slot from a singles perspective for a set, I felt like that was enough to drive great performance. And you'll see the golf score to the right, the combined score to the right is higher than the middle 16, but it is the lowest beyond that. So it was lower than the top 20, and it was lower than the chase card. So coming in at 20 isn't bad. We have 2 of the top 3 sets up there, including Team Up. I love the fact that by looking at the average of the top 3, we're able to get Team Up in the top, and Unified Minds number 3 set. So we have 2 of the top 3 that were rightly projected here in the top. Again, sometimes you're going to have to understand nothing is going to be 100% accurate. Like, we don't live in a vacuum. Things are going to happen. But if you can see enough data trends to point you in a meaningful and correct direction, I think that's really exciting, and I think that's what the average of the top 3 did. Now, it was also really interesting to me that number 10 and number 12 ended up in the bottom, and it was a little disheartening to see number 2 and number 4 and number 5 end up in the middle, because those are really tightly wound. But when you think about it, when you're comparing 4, 4, and 4, it's not all that bad. Average top 3 to me seemed really, really interesting. I think if I were to align my buying perspectives in the future on something, it would probably be the average of the top 3. As much as I love my metric, right, as much as I love my made up middle 16, I need to see that flushed out more. I need to see it across more sets, and I need to see it across more times, since it is something that I just made up. Now, some of the takeaways from this before we call this one quits. There was only one set that was in the top box tier regardless of how we slice this data up, and that was Ultra Prism, which was interesting because Ultra Prism wasn't a huge performer. It was up 13%. Again, as we said in the beginning, 13% is nothing to shake a fist at, but compared to everybody else, it was only number 7 in regards to growth. So every way we looked at it, Ultra Prism was up there, but it was only tied at number 7 for growth. Now, no matter how we ended up, no matter how we looked at it, we never ended up with a set in the top box that wasn't a gainer. Now, we didn't have a whole lot of boxes that lost, that were in the negative over time, but no matter how we sliced it, no matter how we looked at it, the singles cards, the top box, never put us in a position where we had one of those sets that lost value in the top box. Again, this whole video is about, can we come to an idea that the top box has some value and merit to it? The other thing that was interesting is the number 1 set, that Team Up set, was only in the top box twice. Only 2 out of 4 times. Now, again, we know that there's a lot of things that are driving Team Up booster box price through the roof. We know that it's short printed. We know that it's in high demand. Like, there's all kinds of factors that are driving it up. But at the end of the day, the math only got the number 1 right 50% of the time. But I will tell you this, from a statistical perspective, you shouldn't always expect to get the number 1 set in the top. It's just not going to happen. So even though it was only up there 50% of the time, I'm excited that it got it right 50% of the time. And again, as I just said, my stupid middle 16 and the average of the top 3 for this exercise ended up being the most reliable at predicting the top growth sets. Now, you don't have to go out and do the middle 16 math. If you guys like this video, if you thought this was valid, I will do the math that I did in 2022 for all of the sets in Sun and Moon. I will redo it today. We can slice and dice it how we did right here, and we can say, okay, if we look at the top 3, average of the top 3, and this middle 16, which ones do the math suggest have the biggest upside over the next 6 months? Now, we already have one data set. If we do it again, we have something to compare it to, so that might be a worthwhile video. If you guys want me to do that, you know how I operate. Drop it in the comments down below and I will be happy to do it. If you guys want to see it, hit some thumbs up, right? That lets me know you like this content and I will absolutely do more. And if you made it to the end and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you doing? We do fun stuff like this all the time. Hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a member of this community. I got to go finish up the video for Sunday because it is just fire. You guys have a great weekend and I will talk to you soon. Thanks everybody. Bye.